Xin chào, UX, and this is Why Don't Countries Formally Declare War Anymore? By the channel History Matters. Yeah, they do. It's called Special Military Operations, apparently. Countries still fight, and yet you never see any of them make formal declaration. This video is from 2020, so I guess the war they're talking about is, either in name of, some terror here and there, right? I don't even know what words I can say in YouTube, so I have to be careful. But yeah, in the name of lots of, violent entities, people have done, somewhat operations here and there. But, until recently, there hasn't been a major scale war like that. But yeah. When did nations go from declaring wars to just sort of letting them happen and not making them official? We'll look at the Cold War, especially Vietnam and the Falklands conflict, to see why this is no longer the case. Falklands, obviously Falklands was different in the Cold War. It's just like it was a Cold War, right? Vietnam, also South Korea, North Korea, that was all in the name of Cold War, right? To make sure the influence stopped. So it wasn't direct wars, but it was more like a war of whether it's communism or democracy, whose influence is larger around where, and it was basically Cold War. So there was no direct declaration, otherwise there would be nukes coming. That was the case. And I guess in the old time, everything moved slower, I guess. So it doesn't matter if you declare or not. Even if you don't declare, you mobilize people to realize, okay, you're going to war, right? So, there was a thing called dueling, right? In the old times, people used to duel just out of pride. I shall challenge you to a duel, sir. I guess that's declaring war is that level of, but in the larger scale, I guess kings and emperors or whatever declare wars, like people declare duels or whatever. I shall challenge you to duel. I shall challenge you to war. Something similar. But as time more advanced technology came, how everything became faster. It would be really stupid to point out, directly declare war, right? There is, it's like giving out the advantage what you want to do or whatever. But yeah, let's watch it.
Historically, wars were begun by a formal declaration of war. These would often come in two forms. One, via direct communication with a foreign government by delivering a letter or telegram. Or two, through a government minister asking for the passport of a foreign ambassador, thereby revoking their diplomatic immunity. But since the Second World War, there have been very few formal declarations of war and none by the major global powers. Which raises the question, why not? Why did nations stop formally declaring war? So, to give examples of why, we're going to look at two conflicts from the Cold War. The Vietnam War between the USA and North Vietnam, and the Falklands War between Britain and Argentina. Be aware that the general reasons for there not being declarations of war in these conflicts can be applied to most other conflicts too. So, the first major difference between the world pre- and post-World War II is that a new international framework existed, the United Nations, and the UN had very strict guidelines on what were legal grounds for war. So, in the case of Vietnam, there was no declaration of war for several reasons. The first was that the US saw itself as aiding one side in an already ongoing civil war. It didn't recognise North Vietnamese independence, and thus it had no one to declare war on. As far as the US government was concerned, it was aiding the legitimate Vietnamese government against an uprising, not fighting a war against any legitimate state. The second reason was the United Nations. There was no way that the USSR was going to approve a war against a fellow communist state. And the third reason was that domestically there was no need to. You see, normally a declaration of war was needed to implement the draft, but for America, the draft from World War II had never technically ended. After the Gulf of Tonkin incident, in which a US destroyer in the region was attacked by Vietnamese patrol boats, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which gave President Lyndon B. Johnson the right to deploy troops for combat operations without a formal declaration of war. And after the Vietnam War, the US never needed to declare war because...
Yeah, but that's the technicality inside your own country, inside your Congress. That's understandable. But I think the broader term is just that Cold War. Like I said, it's like, Soviet Union versus USA mentality. Just supporting other countries, making sure the influence doesn't spread here and there. That has been the case. So point out declaring war is like point out declaring war against something like, Soviet Union or USA. Right? Because if you declare war against, let's just say, Northern Vietnam or whatever, Northern Vietnam is friends with Soviet Union, so it's like you're fighting against Soviet Union, and now there are nukes. So that is the point of Cold War.
Often its conflicts were much smaller, so no need for a draft. So what about the Falklands War? Why didn't Margaret Thatcher declare war on Argentina in 1982 after it seized the Falkland Islands? Thatcher did actually inquire as to whether or not a declaration of war was necessary, and she was told not to. And the reasons that she was advised against such action were simple. First of all, self-defense is a legal right according to the UN, and second, it would complicate relationships with neutral countries. Neutral states aren't allowed to provide arms for belligerents. Fighting nations can't use their territories or waters for transiting war materials, and they have to detain troops who enter their lands along with many other restrictions. The two nations of particular concern were Spain and Chile. Spain was against the war but had some sympathies towards the Argentinian position. Plus, given the placement of Gibraltar, British naval ships entering Spanish waters by accident had to be detained, and if they weren't, this could jeopardise Spanish neutrality. And as for Chile, some British troops were stationed there for reconnaissance. And if Britain were to declare war, then Chile would legally have to detain those troops or be considered a co-belligerent. And as for Argentina, it was sourcing weapons from other countries and getting reconnaissance from the USSR, hence why a declaration of war benefited neither side.
What the best thing about World Wars is that before World Wars, first and second, which was kind of closer, it doesn't matter, right? It was like 2 or so decades, it doesn't matter much. So two World Wars was so closer that before World War One, there were pockets of people who became friends here and there, but there was no global structure. World War One happened, then not short after World War Two happened at such a larger scale with the ending with the nuke, that with the UN and the global diplomacy has become in a way that everybody's under pressure, right? I mean, whether people want to do certain things or not, certain neutral countries have to take actions, otherwise they look guilty or something. That has become a thing. So after World War II, it doesn't make sense much to declare wars.
These reasons which determine why many nations have no need to formally declare war anymore. Domestic powers to fight wars are largely much greater than they used to be, and wars are often small scale enough that nations don't want to deal with the hassle of formally declaring war.
Yeah, it's called
and
oppressions.
Yet the main reason is that if a nation doesn't formally declare war, it doesn't change its relationship with other states, meaning for them it's as if the war was never happening, meaning nothing has to change. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, with a special thanks to my patrons, James.
Yeah, that last explanation so works today, right? Because I'm pretty sure there was a diplomat in China who somebody says, what about this war? And there's like, what war? Even the Chinese diplomat, foreign diplomat, whatever his title is it's a special operation. It's not a war. Even he said that, right? So you can just deny that we are doing a war, right? You can just name it something else and apparently that's fine. Yeah, the world is changing in a way that you can just manipulate words, right, and just stall major questions like that. It's not a war; it's a special operations. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to declare we are basically doing war, sir, because then doesn't matter if you are point blank the bad guy or not. But if you declare war out in open, you're declaring that I'm doing something that is just a no-no. And I am the bad guy, then every country in the world, doesn't matter if they are even your ally, would be against you. Like you just said you're doing the war. Why would we support you? It's like going against the entire world. So nobody would declare war point blank. Yeah. Well, that was why don't countries formally declare war anymore? Well, channel History Matters. I like this channel. So, I like how the sign thing, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure you can make animation where people can actually move lips and talk at this point, definitely. Right, 1 million subscribers, but I like his style that they just walk around with signs. The comedy just hits right, and it's very short video. It's awesome. Alright, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you want to react to a specific video. Yeah, I'll see you next time.